Hello and welcome to Bless This Mess. In today's episode, we will be discussing the fundamental reasons for why there's a gap in economic opportunity among residents in the South in regard to quality, access, and post-primary educational resources. This will be an open discussion about economic disparity in public education. My name is Landon. I am an aerospace engineering major. Today, we have Sanjjith, the CS major, Addisen with molecular genetics, Shraya with IT management, and Deren with industrial engineering.
Education is one of a family's most valuable assets. As proven by the MDC, education opens earning opportunities and is one of the principal determinants of income. Thus, education provides a bridge to both income and wealth. Many in the South do not own many assets, if any, meaning that in order to increase wages, they must develop their earning capacity through education.
When discussing the quality of public education, you first must look into how it's funded. Most states primarily source funding through property taxes. Seems rather simple. Property taxes are based off of the value of the property being taxed, but it turns out to be far more political. According to a paper written by Timothy M. Mulvaney, a student of Columbia Law, there are unjust governing policies keeping the values of these properties down, particularly in lower income areas. They do this by making it very difficult to perform non-basic renovations, favoring certain areas when making installations that can harm property, perpetuating discriminatory real estate practices, which is particularly bad in the South, and restricting yet encouraging delegating property discourse in some judicial manner. From the perspective of hosts that are primarily in STEM fields, what are issues and quality that arise when discussing education?
Industrial engineering offers valuable analytical problem-solving and optimization skills that can be applied to address educational disparities in the South. Some of the most important ones are data analysis and optimization, infrastructure development, supply chain and resource allocation, collaboration with education specialists, and sustainable development.
As an industrial engineer, how can you work to apply these skills?
You can apply these skills in various ways. For example, you could investigate the impact of educational quality and access on economic outcomes and use optimization methods to propose strategies for improving educational systems in the region. You can also apply these concepts to the distribution of educational resources, textbooks, teachers, and technology to ensure that underserved areas in the South receive the necessary support for quality education. You can explore how sustainable practices in education, such as energy-efficient school buildings or eco-friendly transportation for students, can both improve access to education and contribute to long-term economic growth in the South.
Evidence rooted in data-driven study is key to exposing the issue and revealing ways in which we can manipulate the data through problem-based solutions, aiding our mission to reduce economic disparity in the South.
Shraya and Deren, that was some good points. I just want to bring up a question. Looking towards the future, how can we solve this issue regarding the quality of education once they're identified?
As an industrial engineer, you can contribute to improving workforce development programs in the South. By aligning education and training with the demands of local industries, you can help reduce unemployment and wage gaps. Industrial engineers are good at improving efficiency. You can study the efficiency of the labor market in the South, looking at factors such as job matching, recruitment processes, and job access. By identifying and addressing inefficiencies, you can help increase job availability and reduce wage disparities.
Deren, thank you for that. That was really cool to understand how an industrial engineer might go about solving the quality of education in the South. I want to talk about this from a computer scientist point of view. There's certain techniques that we can use, for example, computational modeling and simulation, and using that it's possible to create and test scenarios and hypotheses about economic disparity in education. We can also evaluate the impacts and effectiveness of policies and programs to reduce inequality and improve education. For an example, you can use a study by Burroughs et al., which used computational modeling to simulate school choices and policies and their effects on student segregation and performance. Through the techniques mentioned, they were able to figure out the best methods and policies for student success. In addition to that, we can use artificial intelligence and natural language processing to develop and implement intelligent systems and applications to enhance and support education and learning, especially for disadvantaged and marginalized students. They can also analyze and generate natural language text and speech to facilitate communication and interaction between students and teachers. For example, a project by Microsoft used artificial intelligence and natural language processing to create a chat box that could provide personalized feedback and guidance to students who are learning English as a second language. The chatbot can also help teachers monitor and assess the program and performance of their students. In an overall point of view, there's a lot of words being said, but we can use computer science to analyze the state at which the education is and figure out where we can go forward from that, from an analytics perspective.
I agree that the quality of education for students is essential to getting into top universities, such that they can get the most amount of opportunity in college. Using artificial intelligence strategies that Sanjjith was talking about would be a great to maximize their scores and maybe help them get into these colleges. However, the economically disadvantaged have a hard time paying for college once they're there. Some of the tuition at these top universities are $60,000 or more. If we look at the top 3 graduate universities for aerospace, they all have a tuition of $60,000 or above, and they are private institutions. So even if you do get in, very impressive. These 3 that I'm talking about, MIT, Caltech, and Stanford, are all incredibly hard to get into. Imagine the amount of limiting potential we're doing by not letting them pay for this. If somebody is smart enough and has put in the work to get into these, it is essential that we allow them to go and find some way to pay for them. Aerospace shouldn't be about the financial circumstances. No STEM major, no major at all, should be about the financial circumstances. Instead, it should be about what they want to do, the work that they're willing to put in, and the passion they have for that industry.
In the midst of the digital age, it is crucial that we have access to high-speed internet and updated technology. Those that are suffering economically may find it extremely difficult to keep up when they do not have this access, leading to a downward spiral of limited educational opportunities, lower employment rates, and a decreased real wage. This digital divide is ever present.
Shraya, I agree with you in that a divide is ever present, especially in the CS field. Employment in CS is heavily based on experience, and that experience is tied to college. So in other words, without spending at least $30,000 a year, depending on what college you go to, and that's always the lower end, upper end's like 50, 60, 70, 80, opportunities in CS is virtually non-existent. You can only get there using boot camps and certifications, and even then you're not guaranteed a high-quality job or anything like that. In addition, without access to proper internet, computer, coding platforms, you can't even succeed in CS. You can't even think about it. And so it's important to give these things, those necessities, to those who don't have access to them. And that's where you can use certain computer science methods like data mining and machine learning. Using that, we can collect and analyze large amounts of data on education and inequality across different regions. And we can use that to identify methods, patterns, and trends and correlations that can reveal the cause and effects of economic disparity on education, as well as identify potential solutions and interventions. For example, a study by Chetty al. used data from 20 million children to examine how location and class affected their chance of moving upward and getting the proper education and tools they needed. And it showed that 80% of those students did not have access to proper tools, platforms, whatever it may be, especially for CS, the computers, internet, like I previously mentioned. They did not have access to that, so they couldn't progress forward in that sense of education. So it's really important to provide them with these things, and we can, using those methods, we can identify them and help them get those resources.
Fields in STEM continue to grow, but due to certain limitations for children in public school, the amount of people to fill those roles is not increasing at a rate that can keep up with its growth. And much of it has to do with the lack of resources for certain people. That is why there are programs targeted toward first-generation, lower-income, and underrepresented students to help them pursue higher education in those STEM fields. The majority that are working operate with 3 overlapping ideas, which are that STEM learning must be cumulative, highly personal, and operate in a complex learning environment. The last 2 of those things most targeted students would not experience in their routine courses at their publicly funded schools.
How do we think that lack of resources contributes to secondary education opportunities?
The lack of resources for secondary education is really important, only because if I can't afford to go where I want to go, or if I can't get into where I want to go because of previous performance detriments due to my lack of income, well, then I'm going to get less opportunity in college. And if I get less opportunity, I'm going to have less exposure to high-profile employees that are going to pay that amount of money, thus creating that wage gap. If I'm in high school and I don't have the money to have time to spend on school, say if I have to work a job, there's many factors that go into this, right? Say if I have a job, I can't spend time on school. Worse grades, can't get into a college I want to go. Or maybe even if I can get into a college I want to go, I can't pay for it. All right, that's high school, right? Can't get into college, that's a barrier right there. Now say once you're in a college, if you had to settle for some colleges you wasn't necessarily the best you could have gotten into given your natural intelligence or maybe the amount you wanted to do within the field. Well, maybe the clubs are not as funded as well. The funding of the clubs is very important. For example, Georgia Tech is known to have a great deal of funding in their aerospace, especially in clubs like GTXR, YJSP. I know many people who've gotten internships from SpaceX, from Blue Origin, NASA, from these clubs, and only because they're so well funded and they're put in front of these eyes so often. I mean, I know that SpaceX internships start at $37 an hour. That's incredibly high, whereas, say, a base-level Delta position offers about $19 an hour. That's a big difference in employment wage. I mean, and think about it, that ratio is going to be even higher in the job. So, I mean, we really have to think, where are the opportunities based on where they get and what happens after they get there?
That is a very alarming pill to swallow. To pull individuals out of the vicious generational cycle, IT systems can make it easy to connect students with poor economic standing to scholarships and other grants that can empower the system. Also, we are able to gather and analyze data from the labor market, and we can leverage this data to bridge the gap between those that are looking for employment and those that, need specific skills and capabilities, which will in turn reduce wage gaps. To follow up this implementation, policymakers can utilize economic forecasting to monitor growth and further expand on this system. According to the Bureau, the level of education a person completes also contributes to the differences in national average salary amounts. For example, people with a high school diploma and no college attendance earn an average salary of around $45,000, while college graduates are able to earn an average salary of $81,000. Those that are not given opportunities in the South are automatically disadvantaged compared to those that do have quality education. They do have access to resources, and those that are able to pursue a higher education. This begs the question, how and to what extent can we work to promote equity and opportunity for all residents in the region?
As we're coming to an end of this podcast, I know there's a lot of words being thrown out there, a lot of sentences, a lot of information thrown out there. We just want to leave you with this question. How can we as humans with different expertise and background work to promote equity and opportunity for all residents in the country?
All right, that's all we have for you today. Thanks for tuning in to Bless This Mess, and have a great day.